You know, nothing says breakfast quite like M&M pancakes with marshmallows and whipped cream. Or those Skittles. They kind of look like Skittles. Anyway, of course the only thing worse than the heartburn after such breakfast is when a soulless killing machine arrives to wipe you off the face of existence. It's the big showdown between Jesse Custer and the Saint of Killers on this week's Preacher, Season 2, Episode 6, Sokosha. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Preacher. So yes, as usual, lots of spoilers ahead. Alright, now, opening sequence. I don't know about you, but I found that wonderfully creepy. Really well done in that sense. I mean, and a lot of that I think was because we don't know what it was they're negotiating for. We can see that this is a family down on their luck. They're going through hard times. They're, taking their last choices that they can. But there's a lot of aspects on this that actually make it feel very predatory as well. I mean, that push of like, hey, I know it's 10%, but if you do 15, it pays double. And the whole, you're not even gonna miss it idea. I mean, really well done. And in fact, I found it actually rather reminiscent of the scene back in season 1 when Quinn Cannon's company is going to buy out or settle out the older couple with their house. And as soon as they sign the paperwork, the bulldozers come in and just wipe the house out. And when they went for extraction, you're expecting some sort of, maybe more pristine, less infection possibilities there. I mean, bedside surgery is one thing, but couch side? I don't know about you, but I certainly wouldn't want to be having surgery of any sort on my couch. Certainly not any endoscopy or arthroscopy or any type of camera work there. And we're thinking through all of this, what is it they're getting? Is this a sperm donation? Is it some sort of platelets? Is it brain fluid? Something like that. But no, when it comes out glowy is a sign of something else, because I don't know about you, but I know of no bioluminescent organ in the human body. Especially one that kind of moves with its own little life. So I thought it was wonderfully well done, really sort of sets up the feel of the episode strongly. Now, of course, we do find eventually that this is a soul that they are extracting and making quite a penny off of. I believe the payout there was $150,000 to the family for the double, and they got $2.7 million to bring a little old pantsless lady back to consciousness. So not a bad deal. Great company name too there. Happy Soul Go-Go. Perfect sort of Japanese title there. It was great. But again, it was really kind of a nice sequence. Now we find out all of the whole soul things, after the saint shows up in that great scene with Jesse and Papa Bebe's. And there was a couple of things I thought that was also beautifully and nicely well done with this. I mean, one, we are finding out about souls, and we're getting a little glimpse into Jesse Custer, Jesse Langel's little background family history, which makes sense. His dad got shot when he was just a kid, so who did he grow up with? Apparently it is back here with a family business that deals with, taking souls and selling them. Really going to be some fun insight to find in here with Jesse. But I love the whole idea. This is like that idea of specialties, of that quick knowledge. Because when Jesse walks in, we know that he's knowledgeable because he can start throwing off all of these places. First he mentions all the tools that they have in there for retrieving a soul, and then just starts going off with all the different shops in town that sell souls. This is a sign of someone well knowledgeable in this field. And when it gets down to finally Angelville, I think that might be where his family is connected in. Because when we saw when he first arrived in New Orleans, there was the Angelville poster while he was drunk and kind of staring at and was wondering, I think I even mentioned back in that review, is this something that's going to come up, that this might be where he's going to find God? But if it's the family business that's just hanging on by a string, this is obviously another step where we're going to find. But his just throwing off of all of the names and the places and stuff, that was a beautiful sign of somebody who is steeped inside of it. Really reflected nicely in the scene right afterwards when he calls up Tulip and asks, how do you get into an armored car? I mean, I love her panic. Yes, she's trying to get her man wiped off of, okay, let's get away from the saint of all killers, but quickly falls back into, do you have, do you have a burner phone? Do you have deep batteries? Do you have the fertilizer? I mean, that the whole list of things. This is Tulip's specialty. Which I thought was just, it was a great way of exhibiting that. We love Tulip, we know that she is a badass, but the fact that off the top of her head she can just come up with a list of ingredients and ideas in order to break into an armored car was perfect. Didn't work, but that's beside the point. Alright, the Saint of Killers. First off, arrival at Dennis's apartment block, the little line of apartments, beautifully done. Allie was great. I love how she just points out that apartment, and then as soon as he walks forward, she turns and bolts. Yes. Run, Allie, run! As far as you can. Perfect. Now, I have to say, I give it up to her. I appreciate the fact that, yes, of course, she led the saint to him. Otherwise, she was going to be dead. But she did give them at least a little bit of a heads up, a little bit of a head start by pointing them in the wrong direction. You could think maybe she was confused about which one it actually was. They all looked the same, but Ellie seemed like a pretty smart girl. So I would like to think that she gave them just that little bit of a heads up to get in there and possibly get out before the saint knocks on their door. As for everybody else on that level, on that floor, really unfortunate for them. They didn't seem like happy people, but that grab and the twist of the arm, horribly done, horribly done. Anyway, but I love getting back into the whole history of it. I mean, I love the fact that they realized what was going on. They called up to try and find Fior. They moved very quickly at nailing down that this was the saint and what had happened to them, and they need to do some research. I love that whole bit. And that scene in the library was awesome. One, book on tape to give you the history of serial killers, of psychotic individuals. I thought that was beautiful and perfect. It covers things up. It allows to tell the story without seeming like obvious narration, which is smart. I also think we might have gotten a little cameo from the original comic book in there amongst those many pages. The artwork from couple of those looked quite familiar. Very cool if that's the case. But it was just done. We got the history, we got their makeup, we got to find out what motivates them, and then through that Jesse is able to pretty much determine out that it is, well, I thought it was forgiveness is what the saint was after. Not quite so much. He wants to go to heaven. In order to go to heaven, he needs a soul, and that starts the whole race for an hour in order to try and save everyone, really. Tulip, Cass, and Dennis. Shows the good side of Jesse. He put it all on the line when Dennis was threatened. Oh, and that end bit. Join us next time for American Psychopaths, Chapter 58. Dick Cheney. Oh man, I laughed out loud at that moment. That was awesome. And now for this week's Scene of the Week. I love that. I'm going to go with, of course, our last big scene when Jesse arrives back with his soul, 1% of his soul, in order to finish his deal with the Saint of Killers. And I love this for a couple of reasons. One, it's big and, we get the giant resolution out of it, but it plays out this feeling that there was some sort of bluff that was going on with Jesse, even from the beginning when he first made the deal. First, it seemed like he was bluffing that he knew what the Saint wanted. And then when he said, okay, that's fine, we'll do it, and the Saint says, okay, you'll give me that one thing I need. That look on Jesse's face was like, oh, yeah, I'll figure that out. But no, he knew what he needed, that he needed a soul, and that started the whole trip to Papa Bebe's and everywhere, which was wonderful. But here we really get to see it, is the fact that he knows he needs a soul. He knows that he needs to go back. And when he comes in, he gives him a part of his own soul, which is a whole beautiful heroic arc there anyway. And that he uses it so that he can command him. Not that he can send him to heaven, but so that he could command and possibly send him right back to hell. You knew, yeah, the fact that he was not willing to send a person such of the saint of killers up to heaven to be with his wife and family. I mean, I don't know. From a forgiveness standpoint, that would be a big thing. But you also have to understand Jesse Custer is not entirely that type of preacher. He is certainly a humanist, rules by his fist. If you do something wrong, you've got to pay for it kind of guy. We love him for that. But I just love the idea is that this was probably his plan for the whole time. I'm not going to give you what you want. I just need to find a way to command you. And you need a soul in order for me to command. So I thought it was a wonderful whole arc that happened there. And then following that, when we have the saint that actually says, yeah, go ahead, send me to hell, send a part of yourself. I think that's what stopped Jesse right there. It's like, can he send really a part of himself down to hell? No. No was the answer, of course, because that's not what he ended up doing. He ended up locking him in the back of an armored car and dropping him inside of the swamp, which should keep him out of his hairs for some time. However, I do think that there is going to be a price that he is going to pay for that. I think that loss of the soul, there's just too much, even that 1% stuck with the Saint of Killers, I think he's going to end up paying for that on some point. Now, one thing that might come back and bite him quicker than that is where he decided to hide the guns. Really? You're going to hide the Saint of Killers' guns, whether he knows that these are guns forged from the sword of the Archangel of Death himself that can kill anything, human, god, demon, whatever. I'm not sure if he entirely knows that. Didn't seem to be covered in the audiobook. But still, hiding that stuff underneath Dennis's bathroom floor, that doesn't really seem like a smart idea either. All right, just a few small things I want to touch on. One, Dennis is Cass's son. Thank you. I really was trying to figure out what their connection was, and that makes total sense. And it also kind of raises a few interesting points because Cass is very attentive to Dennis here. He seems very caring. But he makes the own statement that he never bothered to learn French. Now we know Cass is a selfish, self-pleasure-driven kind of guy. But I think that this is showing a certain arc in Cass's history. I'm really curious to find out. And I know this is where they veered a lot out of the comics as well, is Cass seemed to be that careless, run out, do whatever he wants, id-driven individual. But even before he came and met up with Tulip and Jesse, he seems to have calmed down. He seems to have found, I mean, the relationship with Tulip and Jesse is definitely the best part, but he's always giving. He is, he was willing to set himself on fire. I mean, when Tulip was almost about to get cut by, but the saber of the Saint of Killers, Cass lost his fingers. He jumped up and just grabbed that and pulled. That's not the sign of somebody who is selfish. In this sense, it's not the sign of somebody who wouldn't bother to learn French to speak to his son. So I'm curious if this is showing a certain arc that has happened with Cassidy beforehand. I'd be really curious to see what events might have shifted Cassidy before the whole preacher adventures occurred. To start sort of shifting Cassidy into the direction of the person that we can see him now. The scene where the Saint of Killers and Jesse are standing there watching the audition tape of God, that was awesome. That was so picturesque. There was something so surreal and cool about it. I loved it. Tulip was very shaken by being grabbed from the Saint of Killers. I mean, one, she made a big mistake. She tried to empathize with him, and he, at that stage, has no soul. There's nothing to empathize with there. But when she came back and talked to Cass, is like, he grabbed me. That might be something that's going to reflect back. She was very shaken almost every scene after we saw her. So I think that's going to play something going forward too. Possibly with Jesse's loss of 1% of his soul to the Saint himself. All right, so I think that's going to wrap things up for this week. So next week, the search for God continues. And possibly someone's going to pay money to get shot in the chest. Wasn't entirely sure what they were alluding to with that statement at the beginning. So think it should be fun for next episode. But certainly, I don't think we are done with the Saint of Killers. Maybe for a little while. Like I said, I think that is going to come back quicker than expected. All right, so if you did enjoy this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, please, as usual, throw them down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Darren Jakes. Now, if you are not a subscriber, please join up. You'll catch all of these reviews, plus Game of Thrones we're doing right now, and coming up in the fall, we're going to have Inhumans, we're going to have Mr. Robot, we are going to have Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency Season 2, lots of stuff. So, you won't miss anything if you're a subscriber, and you can do so by clicking my face right there. And I'll throw up our review for the latest Game of Thrones right there. You can check that out. All right, so that's going to be it for me. I am D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.